I overheard my wife tell her sister she didn't love me through my own ventilation system. Divorced her immediately. 3 years later, she's in line ahead of me holding a toddler who looks exactly like me. The kid she swore wasn't mine. Now everything I thought I knew is crumbling. My name is Dustin Craven. I'm 41 years old, and I install industrial ventilation systems for a living. Learned the trade from my father, Russell, who built up a solid business over 30 years. Not rich money, but comfortable enough. That October evening started normal. I'd finished early at a Newark factory job and came home to find Briley's car in the driveway alongside her sister Sarah's Honda. They were having one of their weekly catch-up sessions, so I headed to my basement workshop to tackle some paperwork. Our old Colonial had quirky ductwork, something I'd been meaning to upgrade. The main return line ran right above the kitchen before connecting to the furnace room. I was organizing invoices when voices drifted through the vent above my workbench. At first, it was just background noise. Then I heard my name and froze. "I can't keep pretending anymore," Briley said, her voice carrying clearly through the metal ducts. "I don't love him, Sarah. I haven't for years." My pen stopped moving. The fluorescent light suddenly felt too bright. "So what are you going to do?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," Briley replied. "Dustin's reliable. He provides for us, loves Casper. But I feel like I'm suffocating, living someone else's life." I held my breath, straining to hear every word through that damn vent. "Have you talked to him about it?" Sarah suggested. Briley laughed bitterly. "Talk to Dustin about feelings? The man communicates through work orders and football scores. What'd I say? Hey, honey, I've been faking it for 3 years. 3 years. Since Casper was 7. Since our dinners became quiet and forced. Maybe it's just a rough patch," Sarah said weakly. "No," Briley replied firmly. "This isn't a patch. I married a stable man when I was young and scared. Now I'm 35, wondering what I'm doing with my life." I sat there, surrounded by my tools, listening to my wife dismantle our marriage through ventilation I'd installed myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. Their conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. I quietly gathered my paperwork and headed upstairs, making sure to announce my presence loudly. "Hey, ladies," I called out, forcing cheerfulness. "How's everyone doing?" Both women looked up startled. Briley's face flushed, and for a moment, I wondered if she knew I'd overheard. Then she smiled, that same performance I'd been seeing for months without recognizing it. "Hey, babe," she said. "How was work?" Just like that, I realized I was about to become an actor in my own life. The next week passed like walking through molasses. Every conversation with Briley felt scripted, every smile forced. I found myself analyzing her words, looking for clues I'd missed before. The worst part, she was good at it. Really good. I threw myself into work harder than usual. Had 3 major installations lined up. A pharmaceutical plant in Trenton, a food processing facility in Camden, and an auto parts factory in Elizabeth. Physical labor helped quiet my mind, but evenings were torture. Casper noticed something was off. My 10-year-old son had always been sharp, picking up on things adults try to hide. Tuesday night, he found me in the garage organizing my tool chest for the 3rd time that week. "Dad, you okay?" Casper asked, leaning against my workbench. "You've been weird since Aunt Sarah visited." I looked at my boy, sandy hair like mine, but Briley's green eyes. Kid was too perceptive for his own good. "Just work stuff, buddy," I replied, closing a drawer with more force than necessary. "Nothing for you to worry about. Is Mom sick or something?" Casper pressed. "She's been crying in her room. I heard her on the phone with Grandma yesterday. That stopped me cold." Crying? What else was I missing? "Sometimes grown-ups go through difficult times," I said carefully. "But whatever happens, you know Dad loves you, right?" Casper nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The directness of the question hit me like a gut punch. How do you answer that when you don't know yourself? "Why would you ask that?" I said. "Because Jimmy's parents got divorced last year, and his dad started acting just like you. All quiet and angry and organizing stuff all the time. Smart kid. Too smart. Come here," I said, pulling him into a hug. "Whatever happens between Mom and me, that's between adults. You're the most important thing in my life, Casper. Don't ever forget that." Thursday morning brought the breaking point. I was loading equipment into my truck when Briley appeared in the driveway, coffee mug in hand. She looked tired, older somehow. "Dustin, we need to talk," she said quietly. About what? I asked, not looking up from my tool cases. About us. About where we're heading. I straightened up, meeting her eyes for the first time in days. You mean where you've already decided we're heading? Her face went pale. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not as oblivious as you think, I replied, slamming the truck's tailgate shut. Some of us actually pay attention to what's happening in our own house. Dustin Dash. Save it, Briley. I've got 3 job sites to hit today, and frankly, I'd rather deal with faulty ductwork than whatever performance you're about to give me. I climbed in my truck and drove away, leaving her standing in our driveway. In the rearview mirror, I watched her shrink until she disappeared completely. That night, I didn't come home until after midnight. Briley was asleep, or pretending to be. I crashed on the couch and stared at the ceiling, wondering how long we could keep pretending our marriage wasn't already over. Friday night, everything exploded. I'd worked late at the Camden facility, hoping to avoid another evening of pretense. When I walked through the front door at 9:30, I found Briley sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread out in front of her. Divorce papers. Really? I said, dropping my work bag by the door. This is how we're doing this. Briley looked up, her eyes red-rimmed, but determined. You said you knew what was happening. I figured I'd save us both the charade. Where's Casper? I asked first because that's what mattered. Sleeping over at Tommy's house, she replied. I thought we should have this conversation without him around. Smart move. Kid didn't need to witness this. I pulled out a chair and sat across from her, studying the legal documents. Standard dissolution of marriage petition. She'd already filled in most of the details. How long have you been planning this? I asked. Months, she admitted. Maybe longer. Dustin, I'm not the villain here. We're both miserable. I wasn't miserable, I said quietly. Confused, maybe. Frustrated that we'd stopped talking. But not miserable. That's because you're a good man, Briley said, and for the first time in weeks, her voice sounded genuine. You deserve someone who loves you the way you love them. I leaned back in my chair, processing. Is there someone else? The pause told me everything before she opened her mouth. It's complicated, she said. Complicated how? There's someone I've been talking to. Nothing physical happened while we were together, I swear. But the feelings dash. Ooh, I interrupted. Another pause. Xavier Dorset, from my yoga studio. Xavier, the guy who drove the fancy BMW and wore designer workout clothes to sweat in. I'd met him at a few studio events, all smooth talk and perfect teeth. How long? I asked. The talking? About 6 months. The feelings? Longer. 6 months. Right around the time she'd started going to yoga 3 times a week instead of 2. You realize what this means for custody, I said, pointing at the papers. Casper stays with me during the week. You get weekends and holidays. Dustin Dash. No negotiations on that. I cut her off, my voice harder than I'd intended. You want out? Fine. But that boy needs stability, and you're not in a position to provide it right now. To her credit, she didn't argue, just nodded and wiped her eyes. There's something else, she said quietly. Something you need to know before you sign anything. My stomach dropped. What? I'm pregnant. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of the table, staring at her. How far along? I managed. About 3 months. 3 months. Right in the middle of when she'd been talking to Xavier. Is it mine? I asked, the question tearing out of my throat like broken glass. I don't know, she whispered. The timing? It could be either of you. I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. The sound echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. Get out, I said quietly. Dustin Dash. Get out of my house. Tonight. Take what you need and go to Xavier's place, or your sister's, or wherever the hell you want. But don't be here when I wake up tomorrow. She started to protest, but something in my expression stopped her. She gathered up the papers and headed upstairs. I heard drawers opening and closing, the sounds of a life being quickly dismantled. 20 minutes later, she was gone. 3 years. That's how long it took for me to build a life that made sense again. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that night in the kitchen. DNA tests confirmed what I'd suspected. The baby wasn't mine. Briley married Xavier before little Orion was even born. I kept the house, got primary custody of Casper, and threw myself into expanding the business. Dad helped, of course. Russell Craven might be 72, but he understood what it meant to rebuild after everything falls apart. The custody arrangement worked better than expected. Casper thrived with the stability, and honestly, weekend visits with his mother seemed to be enough for everyone involved. I was picking up lunch from Murphy's Deli on Broad Street when I saw her. 3 years of careful distance, and there she was, standing in line ahead of me with a toddler on her hip. Orion. Had to be. The kid had Xavier's dark hair, but unmistakable features I couldn't quite place. Something about the eyes, the way he held his head. Briley turned around, probably feeling someone staring, and our eyes met for the first time since the divorce hearing. Dustin, she said quietly. Briley, the toddler, Orion, studied me with curious eyes, then smiled and reached out like he wanted me to hold him. Kids do that sometimes. No filter, no judgment. Can we talk? Briley asked. Somewhere private? I glanced around the crowded deli. Your car. She nodded. 10 minutes later, we were sitting in her Honda Pilot while Orion played with toys in his car seat. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. He looks good, I said finally, nodding toward the boy. He's everything, Briley replied. Smart, funny, stubborn as hell. Gets that from his mother. She smiled sadly. Xavier left when Orion was 18 months old. Said he wasn't ready for the responsibility. I felt something twist in my chest. Not satisfaction, exactly, but a grim sense of justice. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. I deserve it, she replied. I made my choices. We sat quietly, watching Orion stack blocks on his lap tray. He looked up and grinned at me again, and something cold and buried began to thaw in my chest. Dustin, Briley said softly, there's something I never told you. About Orion. My stomach dropped. What? The DNA test. The one we did to determine paternity. What about it? She took a shaky breath. I lied about the timing. About when I got pregnant. The world tilted. What are you saying? I'm saying there's a chance he's yours. A good chance. I stared at the little boy, seeing now what I'd missed before. The shape of his nose. The way he tilted his head when he smiled. My son. Possibly my son. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. Because I was scared. Because I'd already lost you. And I couldn't bear the thought of losing him too if you decided you didn't want to be involved. I closed my eyes, 3 years of careful reconstruction crumbling around me. Everything had changed again. The DNA test kit sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days before I could bring myself to open it. 2 days of staring at that small box and wondering if I was ready for the answer it might give me. Casper noticed my distraction immediately. Kid had radar for adult problems. Dad, you've been weird since you went to the deli, he said Thursday evening, finding me in the garage reorganizing tools I'd already organized twice. Did something happen? How do you explain to a 13-year-old that he might have a half-brother he's never met? That the father he trusted to keep life stable was about to turn everything upside down again? Remember when I told you that sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions? I asked, setting down the wrench I'd been polishing for 10 minutes. Yeah, Casper replied, settling into the old chair beside my workbench. Same spot he claimed since he was 7. Well, I might be facing one of those decisions. Does it have to do with Mom? Smart kid. Partly. There's a chance you have a little brother, Casper. A chance that Orion is actually my son too. His eyes widened. Seriously? I don't know yet. That's what the difficult decision is about, whether to find out for sure. Casper was quiet for a long moment, processing. What if he's your son? What happens then? Then everything changes, I said honestly. I'd want him in our lives. I'd want to be his father. And if he's not, then we keep building the life we have. Casper nodded slowly. I think you should find out, Dad. If he's my brother, I want to know him. That night, I called Briley. I want to do the test, I said when she picked up. Dustin Dash. Tomorrow. I'll come by after work. We'll do the swabs, and we'll know within a week. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked. No, I admitted. But Casper deserves to know if he has a brother. And if Orion is mine, he deserves to know his real father. The next evening, I drove to the small apartment Briley had been renting since Xavier left. It was a far cry from our old house, cramped, tired-looking, but clean. She was trying. Orion was playing with blocks on the living room floor when I walked in. 3 years old, all energy and curiosity. He looked up when I entered and smiled that same reaching smile from the deli. Hi, he said simply. Hi, buddy. I replied, my voice rougher than intended. The test itself took 5 minutes. Cheek swabs, sealed containers, paperwork. Simple procedure that might rewrite our entire family structure. How long for results? I asked. 5 to 7 business days, Briley replied. Orion had abandoned his blocks and was now standing beside my chair, studying me with the intensity only small children possess. You're big, he observed. You're going to be big too someday, I told him. Like Daddy. The question hung in the air like smoke. Briley's face went pale. Maybe, I said carefully. We'll see. When I got home, Casper was waiting in the kitchen with homework spread across the table. How'd it go? He asked. Now we wait, I replied. Dad, yeah. If he is my brother, are you going to fight Mom for him? I looked at my son, this remarkable young man who'd handled divorce, custody arrangements, and now potential family expansion with more grace than most adults. I'm going to fight for what's right, I said. For all of us. That seemed to satisfy him. He went back to his math homework while I stood at the kitchen window, watching the sunset and wondering if my family was about to double in size. 5 days. 5 days to know if everything I'd built over the past 3 years was about to change again. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing blueprints for a hospital ventilation system in Princeton. Subject line, DNA test results, case #DDC 2847. I stared at it for 5 minutes before opening it. 99.98% probability of paternity. I read it 3 times, my coffee growing cold beside me. Orion was mine. Had been mine all along. I called Briley immediately. You saw the results, she said. Not a question. When can I see him? I asked, cutting straight to what mattered. Dustin, we need to talk about how this works. I can't just dash. Briley, I interrupted, my voice carrying the authority I'd learned from 20 years of managing construction crews. I've missed 3 years of my son's life because you decided I didn't deserve the truth. That ends now. Silence stretched between us. I want him in my life, I continued. I want him to know Casper, to know his grandfather Russell. I want him to understand where he comes from. And what about me? She asked quietly. What about you? Do I get punished forever for the mistakes I made? I leaned back in my office chair, watching a crew install ductwork through my window. Steady work, reliable systems, things that function the way they were designed to. This isn't about punishment, I said finally. It's about doing right by that little boy. He deserves a father who's present, not someone who gets scheduled visits twice a month. What are you saying? I'm saying I want joint custody. Real custody, not the weekend warrior arrangement you offered 3 years ago. Dustin Dash. I'm not negotiating on this, Briley. Get a lawyer if you need one, but this is happening. That evening, I sat Casper down for the conversation I'd been rehearsing all day. The test came back positive, I told him. Orion is your brother. Casper nodded slowly. What happens now? Now we make room in our lives for him. That means changes, buddy. Maybe a bigger house, definitely different schedules. Are you okay with that? Dad, I wanted a little brother since I was 8, Casper said. This is like Christmas and my birthday combined. It's going to be complicated. Your mom and I, we're going to have to work together in ways we haven't since the divorce. Can you handle that? The question caught me off guard. When had my 13-year-old become wise enough to ask the hard questions? I'm going to have to, I said. For him, and for you. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyer meetings, custody negotiations, and careful first visits. Orion was shy at first, clinging to Briley's leg when I came pick him up. But kids adapt faster than adults, and by the 3rd visit, he was running to greet me. Dustin, he'd call out, arms wide for a hug that never failed to make my chest tight. It's Daddy now, buddy. I'd correct gently. Daddy, he'd repeat, testing the word like a new flavor. The breakthrough came on a Saturday afternoon in early November. I'd taken both boys to the park, watching Casper push Orion on the swings while I assembled a complicated jungle gym said another family had abandoned. Higher, Orion shouted, laughing as Casper obliged. Be careful with your brother, I called out, the words feeling natural for the first time. Casper looked over at me and grinned. He's tougher than he looks, Dad. Later, as we drove home with Orion asleep in his car seat and Casper navigating the radio, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Completeness. Like the missing piece of a puzzle I hadn't realized was incomplete had finally clicked into place. Dad, Casper said as we pulled into our driveway. Yeah, Thank you for fighting for him. I looked at my sons, both of them, and realized I hadn't just gained a child. I'd remembered what it meant to be a father. Thank you for making room for him, I replied. That night, after Orion was settled in the bedroom I'd hastily converted from my home office, I called Russell to give him the update. When do I get to meet my grandson? Dad asked. Sunday dinner, I said. Hope you're ready for chaos. Russell chuckled. Son, I've been ready for 3 years. 2 months into our new arrangement, Russell decided to take action. My 72-year-old father had been watching me juggle work, custody schedules, and co-parenting with Briley. He'd kept quiet until showing up on my Princeton job site unannounced. We need to talk, Russell said, finding me in the hospital's mechanical room. About what, Dad? About your future. Those boys. The fact that you're living in a house meant for one person while trying to build a life for 3. I set down my torque wrench. When Russell Craven spoke, you listened. I'm managing fine, I said. Fine isn't good enough, he replied, pulling a folded paper from his jacket. Property deed. The old Morrison place on Elm Street. 5 bedrooms, big yard, needs work but solid bones. It's yours. I stare at the document. Dad, I can't afford dash. It's paid for. Consider it early inheritance or investment in my grandson's future. The Morrison place. Victorian-era house with good bones, needing serious renovation. This is too much, I said. This is family, Russell replied firmly. Your mother and I always planned to help when the time came. That evening, I showed both boys the house. Casper loved the yard size. Orion was fascinated by old fixtures and echoing rooms. Can I have the room with the window seat? Casper asked. Can I have the room next to Casper? Orion added. We'll figure it out, I said, already planning layouts. Briley's reaction was complicated. You're moving? She asked. We're expanding. The boys need space to grow. Where does that leave me? That depends on you. You're welcome in their lives here, same as always. But I'm making decisions based on what's best for Casper and Orion. She was quiet. Will there be room for me sometimes? When Orion's sick, the question surprised me. If that's what's best for him, yes. 3 weeks later, we broke ground. Casper insisted on helping with demolition. Orion appointed himself supervisor with a toy hard hat Russell bought him. Daddy, you're doing it wrong. Orion informed me while I installed ductwork in his future bedroom. How am I doing it wrong? You need more screws. Everything needs lots of screws so it doesn't fall down. Smart kid. Everything did need screws to keep from falling down. By Christmas, we were moved in. Not finished, but livable. The tree went up in the front parlor with presents for 3 people instead of 2. Christmas morning, watching Orion tear through wrapping paper while Casper helped him read gift tags, I realized Russell was right. Fine wasn't good enough. This was building something permanent. February brought unexpected visitors and unwelcome news. I was installing new ductwork in the Morrison house kitchen when Casper burst through the front door, backpack flying. Dad, Xavier's here, he announced breathlessly. I set down my tools. Here, at our house. He's sitting in a black BMW outside. Says he needs to talk to you about Orion. Through the window, I could see him. Expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, the same arrogant posture I remembered from 3 years ago. Stay inside with your brother, I told Casper. Xavier was leaning against his car when I walked outside. Phone pressed his ear like he owned the world. Dustin, he said, ending his call with theatrical importance. Nice place. Moving up in the world. What do you want, Xavier? Straight to business. I respect that. He straightened his tie. I want my son back. I felt ice form in my stomach. Your son. Orion. I've been thinking about things, about responsibility. I made mistakes, but I'm ready to step up now. The DNA test says otherwise. Xavier smiled. The same practiced expression he probably used on clients. DNA tests can be wrong. Equipment malfunction. Contaminated samples. My lawyer thinks we have grounds for a new test. Your lawyer's an idiot, I said flatly. Maybe. But family court judges hate it when fathers are denied access to their children. Especially when there's money involved. What money? My family's money. Old Pennsylvania money, Dustin. The kind that builds wings on hospitals and puts names on buildings. He gestured toward my house. The kind that makes your little contractor business look like pocket change. I stepped closer. Are you threatening me? I'm offering perspective. Orion deserves better than this. He waved dismissively at my house, my truck, my life. Private schools, country clubs, connections that matter. Not weekend visits to construction sites. Get off my property, I said quietly. Think about it, Dustin. What's better for the boy? This. He gestured again. Or everything I can provide? I said get off my property. Xavier shrugged, climbing into his BMW. My lawyer will be in touch. We're filing for custody next week. I watched him drive away, then went inside to find Casper comforting a confused Orion. Who was that man, Daddy? Orion asked. Nobody important, buddy. But as I held my 3-year-old son, I knew Xavier was wrong about one thing. This wasn't about money or connections or country club memberships. This was about family. And I'd learned something important over the past few months. Family fights for family. Xavier Dorset was about to discover exactly how hard the Craven family could fight. The custody hearing was scheduled for a rainy Thursday in March. Xavier arrived with 2 lawyers and a briefcase full of financial statements. I brought Jim Morrison, Briley's testimony, and the truth. Judge Patricia Wells had been handling family cases for 15 years. She listened to Xavier's presentation about private schools and trust funds with polite attention, then turned to our evidence. Mr. Craven, she said, walk me through the timeline. I explained everything. The overheard conversation, the divorce, the DNA test proving Orion was mine. Xavier's abandonment when responsibility became real. And now Mr. Dorset wants custody because he's decided being a father might be convenient, I replied. Xavier's lead lawyer objected. Your Honor, my client was deceived about paternity. He acted in good faith based on false information. False information he was happy to accept when it meant avoiding child support. Jim countered. Judge Wells reviewed the DNA evidence, Briley's sworn statement, and medical records confirming the timeline. Mr. Dorset, she said finally, you had 3 years to contest paternity. You chose not to. You cannot now claim parental rights to a child you abandoned simply because his biological father has provided stability. Your Honor, I can provide better dash. Better than love. Better than consistency. Better than a father who fought for his child instead of running from responsibility. The gavel came down with finality. Petition denied. Mr. Craven retains full custody rights. Xavier stormed out, his lawyers following. I sat there, shaking with relief. It's over, Jim said. He can't appeal this without new evidence. Outside the courthouse, Briley waited with both boys. We won. Casper asked. We won, I confirmed. Orion ran to me, wrapping his arms around my legs. Are you still my daddy? Forever and always, buddy. That evening, Russell joined us for dinner in the Morrison house. 3 generations around one table, Orion chattering about his day, while Casper helped serve his grandfather's favorite pot roast. You did good, son, Russell said quietly as we cleaned up. We all did good, Dad. This is what family looks like. Later, tucking Orion into his new bedroom, he asked, Daddy, why did that man want to go away? Some people don't understand what family really means, I said. They think it's about money or big houses. But family is about love and staying together no matter what. Like us. Exactly like us. As I turned off his light, Orion called out one more time. Daddy, I'm glad you're my real daddy. Me too, buddy. Me too. 2 years later, the Morrison house was finally finished. Every room renovated. Every system upgraded. Every corner filled with the controlled chaos of family life. Casper was 15 now, helping me with simple installations after school. Orion was 5, starting kindergarten and asking daily when he could help Daddy fix the air. Briley had found her footing too. She'd finished nursing school, landed a good job at the local hospital, and moved into a small apartment 10 minutes away. Close enough for sick days and homework help, far enough for all of us to breathe. You know, she said one Saturday afternoon, watching the boys play catch in the backyard, I never thank you properly. For what? For fighting for him when I couldn't fight for myself. For being the father he needed when I was too broken to see clearly. He's my son, Briley. That's what fathers do. Not all of them, she said quietly. Xavier proved that. Xavier had disappeared back to Pennsylvania after the court ruling. Last we heard, he was engaged to someone who didn't come with complicated custody arrangements. Russell appeared from the workshop, wearing his grandfather uniform of paint-stained clothes and patient smile. At 74, He'd found new purpose in teaching his grandsons the family trade. Casper's ready for his own tool belt, he announced. And Orion thinks he can install ductwork with building blocks. Can he? I asked, grinning. Give him 5 years and proper training. He might surprise you. That evening, after the boys were asleep and Briley had gone home, I sat on the front porch with Russell, watching cars pass on Elm Street. You ever regret it? Russell asked. The complications, the legal battles, the drama. I thought about the question seriously. The past 3 years have been anything but simple. Court dates and custody schedules, renovation headaches, and financial juggling. The kind of chaos that would have terrified the man I was before. Not for a second, I said finally. Look what we built, Dad. What do we build? A family. A real one. The kind that stays together because they choose to, not because they have to. Your mother would be proud, Russell said. She always said the best things in life require the most work. Monday morning brought a new project, elementary school, HVAC upgrade. As I loaded my truck, Orion appeared in his pajamas, clutching his toy hard hat. Daddy, can I come help today? Not today, buddy. But this weekend, we'll work on your bedroom ventilation project. Promise. Promise. As I drove to the job site, I thought about promises. The ones I'd broken, the ones I'd kept, the ones I was still working to fulfill. I'd promised Casper he'd always come first. I'd promised Orion he'd never be abandoned. I'd promised Russell that family would take care of family. But the most important promise was the one I'd made to myself, to never again let fear keep me from fighting for what mattered. Some promises, I'd learned, were worth keeping forever.